She lived in a small town where everyone seemed to know everyone else's business. The kind of place where dreams were often whispered but not always believed in. She was just a teenager with big eyes full of hope and a heart full of music. Every chance she got, she sang. Not for anyone else, just for herself. Music was her secret world, the place she could escape to when the real world felt heavy. But from a young age, she was told she wasn't good enough. Not by strangers, but by the people who mattered the most, or so she thought. In school, when she tried out for the choir, the teacher told her she needed more control and less emotion. The words stung more than any note she had ever sung off-key. At home, her family was kind but practical. They told her to focus on something more stable. Music is nice, they said, but it's not a job. She believed them deep down. If the people closest to you don't think you have what it takes, who else will? She tried to quiet her dreams and be like the others, safe, steady, careful. But music never left her. It whispered to her in quiet moments, calling her back. One evening, she sat alone in her room, staring at a small mirror hung on the wall. The reflection looked back at her, uncertain, tired, almost invisible. She wondered if she was just fooling herself all along. Maybe she really wasn't good enough. Maybe she should give up. The words from the talent contest still echoed in her mind. Not your time. Not your voice. That contest had been a turning point. She had dreamed of it for months, the chance to show the world what she could do. She practiced every day, careful with every note, hoping for a moment to shine. But when her turn came, the judges barely looked up. The crowd was polite but not moved. Afterward, she overheard a whisper, "She's not ready." The disappointment was heavy, but what hurt most was the silence afterward. No calls, no encouragement, just doubt, the kind that creeps in and settles deep in your bones. For a while, she stopped singing. The piano in the corner of the living room collected dust. The notebook filled with lyrics and melodies stayed closed. Friends stopped asking about music because they could see the fire was fading. One rainy afternoon, she wandered into a small cafe downtown, hiding under a large umbrella. The smell of coffee and warm bread filled the air. It was a place she had never noticed before, tucked between an old bookstore and a bakery. The cafe was quiet, with soft music playing in the background. She ordered a hot chocolate and found a corner seat by the window. As she waited, she hummed a tune softly to herself, almost without thinking. The melody was new, gentle, and hopeful. A man sitting nearby looked up from his book. He wasn't young, but there was a kindness in his eyes that made her feel safe. "You have a nice voice," he said quietly, not in a way that felt like a compliment she had to earn, but as if it was a simple fact. She froze, unsure if she should be embarrassed or pleased. "Thank you," she whispered. "I'm a voice coach," he explained. "I help people find the best in their voices. If you want, I can listen more sometime." She shook her head. "I'm not sure it's worth it." "Sometimes worth is hard to see at first," he said with a smile. "But if you want to sing, I'll help." For the first time in months, a small spark lit inside her. Maybe this was the chance she needed. They met a few times after that. The coach was patient and gentle. He didn't push too hard or expect perfection. Instead, he asked her to feel the music, to trust the sound coming from her own heart. It wasn't easy. Some days her voice cracked or faltered. Other days her doubt screamed louder than the notes. But with each lesson she found a little more strength. She started to believe, not because anyone else said she was good, but because she could feel it herself. Her family didn't know about the lessons. She kept them secret, afraid of their disappointment. But the more she sang, the more alive she felt. Music was no longer just a dream. It was becoming a part of who she was. One day, the coach suggested she enter a local talent show. It wasn't the biggest stage, but it was real. She hesitated, the old fears creeping in. What if she failed again? What if she wasn't good enough? But this time, something inside her said yes. She would try, not for the judges, not for the crowd, but for herself, for the girl who had almost given up. The night of the show arrived, and the small community center was filled with nervous performers and hopeful families. Backstage, she paced quietly, the familiar fear settling in her chest. But she remembered the coach's words, "Sing for you. Nothing else matters." When it was her turn, she stepped onto the stage, the lights bright and warm. The room went silent. She took a deep breath and began to sing. Her voice was soft at first, unsure, but with each word it grew stronger, full of feeling and truth. The song was about her journey, the hurt, the doubt, the hope. As she sang, she could see faces in the crowd soften, some nodding along, others holding their breath. When the last note faded, there was a beat of silence. Then a wave of applause. Not the loudest, not the biggest, but real. For the first time in a long time, she felt seen. She didn't win the contest that night, but something else happened. She realized that being good enough wasn't about what others said. It was about what she believed. On the way home, the coach smiled. "You stunned more than the judges tonight," he said quietly. "You stunned yourself. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough." She was still thinking about that night at the talent show when the phone rang the next morning. She almost didn't answer it, afraid it was just another disappointment, but the voice on the other end was calm and kind. "Hello, this is from the Regional Talent Showcase," the woman said. "We'd like to invite you to the finals next month. Your performance was noticed." For a moment she couldn't speak. Then the coach smiled on the other end, quietly saying, "You earned this." The news spread quietly through her small town. Some were surprised, others proud. But most of all, she felt something new: hope. The weeks that followed were filled with hard work. The coach was with her every step of the way, pushing gently but firmly. They practiced every day after school, sometimes late into the evening. Her voice grew stronger and clearer. More than that, she began to understand the music inside her. Not just the notes, but the feelings, the stories she wanted to tell. Her family noticed the change. Her mother said, "You sound different." "More sure." Her father nodded, though he still worried. "Just remember to keep your feet on the ground," he said. She nodded but knew she needed this. School was harder to balance now. There were lessons, rehearsals, and homework. Some friends didn't understand. "Why do you keep chasing this?" they asked. "It's not real." But others cheered her on quietly, saving their words for when she needed them most. She felt the pressure. The final would be on national television. Millions of people would watch. The thought made her stomach twist with nerves and excitement. One afternoon she found herself sitting alone in the park, staring at the sky. Doubts crept in again. What if I fail? What if they laugh? What if I'm really not good enough? But then she remembered the coach's words. "Sing for you. Nothing else matters." She closed her eyes and sang softly to herself. The music was a warm hug in a cold world. She promised herself she would try, no matter what. The coach helped her pick a song for the finals. It was an original she had written, a song about pain, hope, and the strength to keep going. It was personal, and that scared her. But it felt right. Rehearsals became more intense. The coach worked on her voice, her stage presence, even how she breathed. He told her, "You're not just singing notes. You're telling your story." At home, her family started to come around. Her mother helped her with meals, making sure she ate well. Her father stayed up late to listen to her practice, proud but quiet. The day before the final arrived, and she could barely sleep. Her mind raced with thoughts. The world was waiting to see her. Was she ready? When the morning came, she sat in front of the mirror, looking at the girl who had been told she wasn't good enough. She smiled softly and said, "I'm ready." At the studio, the atmosphere was electric. Contestants from all over the region waited nervously. Backstage, she paced and breathed deeply, trying to calm her nerves. The coach stood beside her, a steady presence in a storm of emotions. When her name was called, she stepped onto the stage. The lights were bright and the crowd was huge. For a moment, she felt small. But then she remembered why she was there. She took a deep breath and began to sing. Her voice filled the room. Soft at first, then strong and clear. The words poured out of her like a river, carrying all her fears, hopes, and dreams. The audience was silent, hanging on every note. As she finished, the room exploded into applause. Some wiped tears from their eyes. Judges nodded with respect. The moment was bigger than anything she had imagined. Afterwards, reporters and cameras swarmed around her. She answered questions softly, still overwhelmed. The video of her performance spread quickly online. Comments poured in, some praising her courage and talent, others doubting her. But she focused on the faces of the people who believed in her, the coach, her family, and a few close friends. The journey wasn't over. It was just beginning. The day after the televised final felt strange. The world seemed much bigger and at the same time very small. People she had never met recognized her on the street. Some smiled warmly. Others whispered or stared. She wasn't sure how to feel about all this attention. Her phone kept buzzing with messages. Friends, strangers, even people from her old school. Most were kind, but some were not. The internet, she learned quickly, was a place where people could be both kind and cruel. Despite the noise, she tried to keep her life normal. School was still there, demanding her time and energy. Homework, tests, and projects didn't stop because she had a moment in the spotlight. Some days were harder than others. Some teachers congratulated her quietly. Others seemed jealous or distant. Back at home, things were changing. Her family was proud but nervous. Her mother worried about the pressure, while her father seemed unsure how to support her. They didn't say much, but she could see the worry in their eyes. The coach, who had been her steady guide all along, told her, "Fame can be a strange friend. It comes fast and leaves just as quickly if you're not careful." He reminded her to stay true to herself. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to stay grounded. But it wasn't easy. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Interviews, photo shoots, and meetings with music producers filled her days. She met people who talked in words she didn't always understand. Contracts, albums, tours. It was exciting but overwhelming. She missed the quiet moments, the simple joy of singing just for herself. Sometimes she sang in her room late at night, away from cameras and phones, feeling free. One afternoon, she sat with the coach in a small studio. He asked her how she was feeling. Scared, she admitted. "Sometimes I don't know if I can do this. If I'm really ready." "That's normal," he said. "Every artist feels that way. The important thing is to keep going." He suggested she write new songs. Songs that told her truth, not what others wanted to hear. That night, she opened her notebook and began to write. Words came slowly at first, then faster. She wrote about fear, hope, and the moments that made her who she was. The music was messy and imperfect, but it was hers. Her confidence grew with each new song. She started performing again, small shows at first. The crowds were smaller, but they were real and supportive. The old doubts still whispered sometimes. "You're not good enough. They'll forget you." But she learned to silence them, focusing instead on the people who believed in her. One day she received a message from a big music festival. They wanted her to perform. It was the chance she had dreamed of, the chance to stun a nation. Just like she had always hoped, she smiled, remembering the girl who once doubted she could ever sing. Now, the stage was waiting. She had come a long way since those early days of doubt and silence. The invitation to perform at the big music festival was a sign that her hard work was paying off. But with this new opportunity came new challenges she hadn't faced before. In the weeks leading up to the festival, she felt a mix of excitement and fear. The festival was known for bringing together some of the best musicians in the country. The stage was huge, the audience even bigger, and the spotlight brighter than anything she had experienced. Her coach reminded her to stay calm and focus on the music. "You've got this," he said, "but remember, it's okay to feel nervous. That means you care." Despite the support, she found herself battling old fears. What if she forgot the words? What if her voice cracked? What if the audience didn't connect with her? Her family, now fully supportive, helped her prepare in their own ways. Her mother cooked her favorite meals to keep her strength up. Her father, once quiet and unsure, attended every rehearsal and cheered the loudest at small practice shows. Friends reached out more, sending encouraging messages and reminders of how far she had come. Some even showed up unexpectedly to practice sessions, turning them into small celebrations. She spent hours rehearsing, perfecting not just the song but the way she moved and connected with the crowd. The coach helped her work on her stage presence, teaching her how to hold the microphone, how to look into the audience, and how to let the music flow through her. One night, after a long rehearsal, she sat alone in her room, feeling both tired and excited. She thought about all the moments that had brought her here, the nights she almost gave up, the people who believed in her, and the voice inside that refused to be silent. On the day of the festival, the city buzzed with energy. Streets were filled with music lovers, colorful banners, and the scent of food from street vendors. She arrived early, the sounds of tuning instruments and murmurs filling the air. Backstage, she waited nervously. The stage manager called her name, and it was time. Stepping onto the stage, she felt the roar of the crowd before she even began to sing. Thousands of faces looked up at her, and for a moment, she felt small. But then she remembered her journey, the doubts, the lessons, the love. And she took a deep breath. Her voice began soft and clear, weaving through the night air like a story being told for the first time. As she sang, she could see people swaying, closing their eyes and smiling. The song was her truth, raw and beautiful. When the last note ended, the crowd erupted in applause. It was a moment she would never forget. After the performance, she was surrounded by reporters and fans. She answered questions about her journey, her music, and what inspired her. She spoke honestly about the struggles and the strength it took to keep going. The festival performance opened doors she hadn't imagined. Offers to record music, invitations to other shows, and interviews on national radio started coming in. But through it all, she stayed grounded, remembering the small-town girl who once wondered if she was good enough. In quiet moments, she still sang just for herself, finding peace in the music that had carried her through. After the big festival, her life changed in ways she had only dreamed about. The invitation to perform there had been the moment that made everything real. The crowd, the lights, the music, they all came together to show her that she belonged on stage. But with the bright lights came new pressures. Every move she made seemed to be watched and judged. Some days she felt like she was living in two worlds, the girl who just wanted to sing and the person the world wanted her to be. She began writing more songs, pouring her feelings into every word. The songs were about hope, pain, and believing in oneself, themes she knew well. She wanted her music to reach others who had felt small or unheard. Her team grew as her career did, managers, producers, and publicists. They helped her navigate the busy world of music. But she kept close the people who knew her before the spotlight, the coach who had guided her voice, and her family who had never stopped believing. One evening, she was invited to perform at a national event honoring everyday heroes. It was a huge stage watched by millions across the country. She was nervous but proud. She chose to sing a new song called Enough, a powerful anthem about overcoming doubt and believing in your worth. The song spoke of her journey, the times she felt she wasn't good enough, and how she found strength inside herself. As she sang, the room fell silent. The words were simple but filled with emotion. When she finished, the audience rose to their feet, clapping and cheering. That night, many said she had become the voice of a new generation. But she knew the truth. She was still the same girl who had once been told she wasn't good enough. After the performance, she decided to use her platform to help others. She started a foundation to support young artists from small towns, those who might feel invisible or unheard. She wanted to give them the chance she almost lost. She visited schools and community centers, sharing her story and encouraging young people to believe in themselves. She knew how powerful it was to have someone say, "You are enough." Her journey had come full circle. The girl who once doubted was now a mentor, a voice for many. One afternoon, she sat in a quiet cafe, watching a young girl sing softly in the corner. The girl's eyes were full of hope and fear, just like hers had been. She smiled and walked over. "Keep singing," she said gently. "You're more than enough."